Hi, everyone, and good evening. I'd like to welcome you on this lovely Sunday night for a very, very special treat. We are in for the biggest treat because we have invited Saul and Ruby from the documentary Saul and Ruby's Holocaust Survivor Band film. They'll be playing music, they'll be speaking, and we also have the director of the film, Tod Lending, here today. So we're all very excited. I want to mention before we start, though, that I am recording this event. I'd like you all to stay on mute. Those are two key things just to remember. This event is being hosted by the World Jewry Committee and the Holocaust Learning Committee from Westchester Jewish Center. And as I mentioned, it's an honor to have Saul Dreier, Ruby Sosnowicz, and Tod Lending today. Before I welcome them, I'd like to give you some background information on them. Tod is an Academy Award nominated and National Emmy winning producer, director, writer, cinematographer whose work has aired nationally on ABC, CBS, NBC, PBS, and HBO, and has been screened theatrically. His films have been screened theatrically and awarded at national and international festivals. Sorry about that. And has been televised internationally in Europe and Asia. He's also the president and founder of Nomadic Pictures, a documentary film production company based in Chicago, and the executive director of Ethno Pictures, a nonprofit film company that produces and distributes educational films. He has produced and directed over a dozen films, including All the Difference and Legacy. I feel like I found a partner in crime with Tod because he understands the importance of sharing these important stories just as I do. And while working with Saul and Ruby, he became a one-man crew of director, writer, producer, editor, and cinematographer. I hope that by now you've all had a chance to see the film, but if you haven't, please know that you have until the end of the month to screen it. When Tod met survivors Saul and Ruby and heard about their klezmer band that performs around the world in memory of those who perished, he knew he had to tell their story. So tonight he will share what he learned about these two heroes in the course of making this film, and they in turn will talk to us about their lives and what it was like to share their stories and travel back to Poland together. I'd also like to wish Ruby a very, very happy birthday because his birthday is today. And Saul's Ruby was on Thursday, so also happy birthday, Saul. And they're only 39, so everyone wish them happy 39th birthday.
I got the remnants from it.
Ah, fabulous. So now I'd like to welcome Tod, Saul, and Ruby. Tod, take it away.
Holly, thanks so much. And thank you to the congregation to taking some time on your valuable Sunday and spending an hour with us. I think it'll be worth your time. I hope it'll be worth your time. I'm talking to you from Chicago. Saul and Ruby are in Florida. They're outside of Fort Lauderdale area. And we're just excited to be here. The game plan is I'm going to give a brief introduction to the film, how I met these guys, how I got the film started. Then Ruby will play a piece, and then we'll go into conversation. And then we'll address some Q&A. So please use the chat to send Q&A to Holly. She'll be monitoring that. So we'll leave like 15 minutes for Q&A. And then Saul will wrap it up with some playing on his drums. And that'll be it. So you'll get a little taste of everything. So this film, it took 2.5 years to make. I had just finished a project and I was looking for my next project when a friend of mine showed me this short 3-minute piece in the New York Times. And it was on Saul and Ruby. They had just formed this band, and this fellow who did this 3-minute piece happened to discover them, and they were just in the beginning of their journey. My friend showed it to me, and I just immediately fell in love with these two guys. And I was pulling my hair out saying, oh my God, this guy found these two guys before me. This is a film I would have loved to have done. And so my friend said, well, you don't know that this person isn't doing a longer film, because I assume this person was. Oftentimes these 3-minute pieces are part of something much longer. So my friend said, you don't know, you should call them. I was like, come on, these guys are so amazing. This person would be nuts, to not be doing a longer film on these guys. She said, call him. So I did. I called, I got a hold of Saul. By this time, it turns out the guy who made the 3-minute piece was not doing a longer piece. And so Saul, by this time though, Saul and Ruby were receiving calls from other production companies. So I convinced Saul to let me come and meet with him. And I think it was practically the next day. I jumped a flight and went down to Florida and met with Saul in a deli. And we talked, and I sold myself to him. And I then met Ruby, and Ruby approved as well. And so that was it. We were off and running. And it was an amazing experience, which we'll talk a little bit about later. You should know there were 250 hours of footage that we shot, so we cut that down to the 90-minute film. So that's practically less than it's barely less than 1%. So we did a lot of shooting, although there was a lot of great scenes that were left on the cutting room floor. And then we had our premiere in January 2020 at the Miami Jewish Film Festival. A good distributor was interested in the film. They picked it up. Samuel Goldwyn Films now distributes the film. The film won the Grand Jury Prize in Miami, and then we went to Atlanta, which is also like one of the largest Jewish film festivals in the world, and won the Audience Award. And we were off and running, and then COVID hit. So the film is shown in Moscow. It's shown in Australia. It's shown in New Zealand. It's been traveling the world. I personally just feel so horrible that Saul and Ruby, who love traveling and love telling their stories to anybody and everybody, didn't get that opportunity to travel with the film, and that was painful. So we've been doing the Zooms. This is what we're doing. So with that said, I'd like Ruby. Ruby, are you ready to play a tune for us? Hold on, Hannah's going to turn on the...
Say something.
Oh, hold on. Okay, can you hear us now?
Yeah, I hear you
Hear
perfect.
that?
Okay.
Okay.
You
I'd
hear
like you to
me?
play, Ruby. Yeah.
Okay, let me tell you a story. I'm a Holocaust survivor, but my accordion is also a Holocaust survivor. That you should know, because this accordion has a big story. I'm gonna make it short and sweet. I got this accordion from a German school, accordion school. I always wanted to play the accordion, and in the B camps, when we were in the B camp, always they sent entertainment German people to play for the Holocaust people. Every night was a concert. And I was looking at the concert that the accordion player played. And I always loved to play the accordion. And he looks at me and he said, you like the music or you like the... I say, I like the accordion, I like to play. He said, okay, you know what? Tomorrow I come over and I take you to my school and I will teach you a little the accordion, which I always knew a little bit. I come from a family also musicians. Anyway, short and sweet, he gives me this accordion to play. And I'm sitting with another few musicians, accordion Germans, and they're playing. And after he said to me, you love the concert? I said, no, I love it, sure, you're playing very nicely, but I don't have an accordion. He said, this accordion will be yours. We got it from the German, took it away from a Jewish musician, but they killed. And that's why I have these accordions from 1945. Thank you. And I'm gonna play for you a little of international music, like international from over the most of the country. Evenu shalom alechem. Evenu shalom alechem. Evenu shalom alechem. Evenu shalom, shalom, shalom alechem. Now we're going to France. Whatever will be, the future's what I to see. Que sera, sera. When I was just a little boy, I asked my mother, what will I be? Will I be handsome? Will I be rich? And hear what she said to me. Que sera, whatever will be. The future's not ours to see. What will be, will be. Because those people who don't understand English, I'm gonna either have the lyrics in Yiddish. Wenn ich bin gewesen, ein Kleinkind, hab ich meine Mama ständig gefragt. Wenn ich sein Ohren, wenn ich sein Reif, das hat sie mir gesagt. Was wird sein, wird sein. Das beste Mensch, der mich rein. Der Zukunft wird kommen allein. Was wird sein, wird sein. Que sera, sera. Bist du schlecht? Ein Leben hast du hell. Beim Glück einer auf der Welt. Beim Leben bist du hier, beim Leben hast du nicht. Beim Glück einer auf der Welt. Unter dem Liederes steht der klugweiße Ziegele. Das Ziegele ist geflogen am Glück. Was wird sein dein Baruch? Roschenkäs mit Mandeln. Schlopsche, schlopsche, Liederle, schlop. It's a Russian. more than I'll ever know. Welcome to the Untitled Chapter, what you with all my heart. Return to me, and only me, my melody. Oh, God bless America, land that I love. Stand beside her and guide her through the night with a knife from my heart. God bless Medinat Israel, land that we love, and stand beside her and guide her through the night with the light from above. God bless everybody.
Thank you, Ruby.
Peace for the
Thank
world.
you. Thank you. That was perfect. That was
Okay.
great. Ruby, let me ask you a quick question, then I want to jump to Saul. And we'll get the conversation going. Thank you so much for that. You play so many different forms of music from all over the world, which is pretty
Yes.
interesting. What do you have a favorite form?
Everything is what I play is my favorite.
Everything's your favorite.
Everything.
Okay.
It wouldn't be favorite, I wouldn't play. I play dance music too. All kinds, depends where I am performing.
Okay.
But
All right. All right, Saul, why don't you jump in here? Why don't you give us a story on how you came up with this concept of the Holocaust Survivor Band?
Well, I'm gonna start. I'm gonna give it to you. I'm sitting quiet till now. Anyway,
Also, Saul, turn off
Yeah.
your phone. Is your phone on? I saw you.
no,
Is it off? Okay.
no, that's all. But 5 years ago, I guess 5 years ago, one morning, I woke up, and every morning I go to my computer and I read the news, and I saw something that right away hit my brain. A woman, 180 years old, a Holocaust survivor, passed away. She was a pronounced, terrific piano player, and she was liberated in Theresienstadt. When I heard Theresienstadt and I found out where she was liberated, it got me right into me. And I told myself, I would love to do something for this woman. Her name was Mrs. Somers. Every day afternoon, she used to play a piano. She was living in London. And I said myself like this, I have to do something for her. I woke up my wife and I told her the same story that I told you now about the woman. So my wife said, Saul, Bismishige in Jewish. I hope the people understand me, you're crazy. This happened on a Thursday. On Saturday, we have services in our synagogue. We play music. I belong to a Reform synagogue. I came in, we had kiddush, we had lunch. And the same story, my rabbi was sitting next to me, so I told him the same story. So he was a Holocaust survivor child. So he said in the accent, Sal, you're 90 years old. What do you need this for? You're 15 years retired. You're crazy. And this got me with two people say I'm crazy. On the contrary, I said, I'm gonna do it. Monday morning, I took a blank check and ran into Sam Ash, which is a half a mile where I live, and I bought a brand new set of drums. And I put in my car, and I'm a proud musician driving home with a set of drums. And I'm the founder of the Holocaust Survivor Band. I'm coming home. I come upstairs, my wife asks you, Sal, where were you? So I said, I went shopping. I said, what do you mean you went shopping? Yeah, oh, by the way, I bought you a present. She says, you must be kidding. What you've got? I tell you the truth, the presents are a little big. I can't carry it. You want to come downstairs to the car? I'm going to show it to you. Anyway, she wasn't lazy. She went downstairs. I opened the trunk. I look on the roof. I opened the four doors. She saw a drum set. She started to yell, "Oi, give out! Either you go or I go." And that's how I started the Holocaust Survivor Band. My first program, I rented a hall by my rabbi in the synagogue, and I told him I want to have a two concert. I mixed up my orchestra with another orchestra from Miami, and we started to play. I invited my wife, and the rabbi tells me, "Saul, what are you going to take the money? You have to pay for the hall. You have to, how much you going to charge?" I said, "Rabbi, I won't charge nothing." He says, "Why?" "Because if I'm going to charge, nobody going to show up. If I'm going to play for nothing, we're going to have a full house." And that's what happened.
Wait, you skipped
Eventually,
something.
I
Saul,
called my, I beg your pardon?
Saul,
Yes,
how did you meet Ruby?
that's what just
Oh,
give me
you're
a
getting
chance.
there. Okay.
Eventually, I called a friend and I says, "I'm looking for Holocaust Survivor Band." And a friend of mine was living in Boca, Century Village. He told me, "Saul, I've got a terrific man for you. He plays accordion. He's a teacher. And I know he comes from Brooklyn. He lives in Delray." So I says, "Give me the number." He gave me the number. I called Ruby and I drove to his house, and I was lucky. Why? Because came on Friday. Friday, Hannah was home. So I had a chance to speak to Ruby and to Hannah, and I sold them a bill of goods, the truth. I told them what I want to do, and they agree. And became together. We got together. We started to play, and our first break we were playing for Rabbi Lipske in Miami and the Sukkot, and we got rained out. We are playing inside. We were on a little stage, 6 musicians, and eventually a woman by name Margulian passed by, said, "Could you give me your card?" And I gave her my card. She says, "You're going to hear from me in a few days." And that's what happened. Me and Ruby were invited to a place that we present ourselves. That's right away make us and brought us over to Las Vegas, to the Venetian Hotel. They had a gathering of Holocaust survivors from all over the world, and they were honoring Sheldon Adelson, and also the key member of the show was Dudu Fisher. He saw us, he spoke to us, and we hooked up, and we started to play, and we had a standing ovation. And that's how it started. Continue.
Ruby, what was your reaction when you met Saul? What did you think about his idea? Did you think he was Meshuggah or what?
Yeah, that time my wife was very sick. Usually I used to perform. I didn't play maybe 2 months music because of my wife. And that was a blessing. He came in and my daughter right away said, "Okay, go on and don't worry, I will take care of your wife, my daughter." And that was start. And when he come in, he brought a little drum, and I started to play, and he enjoyed himself. And after he said to me, "What we gonna call this band?" I said, what you're asking, what are you gonna say? You are a Holocaust survivor, I'm a Holocaust survivor. We'll be a Holocaust survivor band, and that's the way came the band name.
Ah, okay. What did your wife think? She was ill. She wasn't feeling well. You were
My wife
starting
was
this.
very happy. She couldn't, she was very, very sick. But she enjoyed everything what I did. When she saw me playing the music, she enjoyed too, because she knew that I'm depressed.
And the music helped bring you up, helped your feelings, helped you feel better about things, about life.
Oh yeah, I felt very bad, and my wife was happy too. Since then, we went out more to play, and my wife had the aid with her. Some of the time she came with the aid to the shows. And she got therapy, and that's it.
Yeah. And Saul,
Todd, I have a question for you. This is
Yes.
Holly. There is a comment in the box that it's hard to hear Ruby.
oh,
I just wanted to know, Barbara, is it still hard to hear Ruby? Do you
But,
want us to try to do anything, Barbara Berman?
They can't hear you.
oh, yeah.
I mean, I hear you. Are other people, is anyone else having a
I
problem?
hear him fine.
I do too. Is anyone else
I
having a
think
problem?
it's-
Otherwise, we'll,
I think it's maybe just Barbara.
all right. Sounds good. Let's move on.
Yeah. I hear him absolutely fine.
I do too.
So, Saul, your wife Clara was also sick, and here you were starting this new venture, and it was going to involve, moving around. And how did you deal with that? How did she deal with it?
Well, I convinced my wife to come to the voice concert. She was sitting in the voice row, and I went on the stage and I play my drums. She says, Saul, what are you doing? I said, I want you to sit and watch me. After we finished the song, she finished the concert, I came down and she took with her finger, like she called to me, well, I'm living with you for over 50 years, but now I'm gonna give you a name. She says, what? I'm gonna call Saul the celebrity. And that's how I started. There were 350 million people in the United States. I came with the idea to call the name of the Holocaust Survivor Band. So that's how I started.
So, all right. So she approved. Okay.
Yes,
Eventually,
she approved. She
won.
called me a celebrity. She was very happy, but she was very sick.
Yeah. Let me jump to Poland and jump to what it was like for you guys to go there. Let me jump over to Ruby because Ruby had never been back to Poland before. This was his first time back since the war in the film when you see him go to Poland. So
Yes.
Ruby, what was that like for you to go back there?
I would never been back if that wouldn't happen. When I came back, I looked at the place where I used to live. I even didn't find the address. I didn't find nothing, but everything was destroyed. Depressing, was very, very depressing. And that's it. I was happy, not happy, but because I didn't want to go to Poland, but I went, I'm happy, I saw whatever I saw.
What did it feel like for you to play in that concert in front of 2,000 mostly Gentile Poles? What was that like?
Great. I enjoyed it.
You enjoyed that,
Oh yeah.
and you were
There's a
playing
lot
with
of Polish people who are very good for the Jews, but most of them were not the same. Yeah, I would never. I played for Gentile people, a lot of Gentile people on that concert. I would never believe that I would play for them, but we had a good time.
Yeah. And Saul, what about you? I know you had been back to Poland once or twice.
Well, before I went with the orchestra with Ruby to play the concert in Poland, I was twice in Poland. Except what I did, I never took my wife and my son and my family when we came the first time to the house where I was living. Somehow my heart told me I didn't want to break down in front of my wife. You understand? I knew it's gonna happen. So eventually we went to my house, Ruby, Hannah, and me. And I think you were with the camera, correct?
Yes.
And I looked my house looked like, like a rundown property. And I pointed to Hannah and Ruby. I says, here upstairs is my apartment. So Hannah says, go in, go in. And I listened to her, but when it came to the steps, I found out. I stopped. I said, I can't do it, and started to cry on the wall. And I never walked in. And I'm glad I didn't do it, because if I would win with my child, it would be I would be the most embarrassed. Not only embarrassed, I would break my wife to half, and I didn't want to do that.
Mm.
But you know, Ruby and Chana, they're in the same position than me, so they understood me. You understand? So it was a different situation. But I was completely out of it. I didn't want to go one step up. And we came out and we left. You were with us, so you know.
I was with you. Did you ever have, I mean, lasting effects from that, from when you returned to the
As
US?
a matter of fact, I returned twice to Poland after that.
Right.
And I didn't go to my house only once. Why? Because the people that took me to Poland, they wanted to see where I was living, so I took them. But that time already, it didn't bother me. It was already a different situation.
Mm-hmm. And what was it like for you to play on the tracks of Auschwitz?
This was, I tell you the truth, the Auschwitz and Plash of Krakow and Schindler Factory put me out. I mean, this was something out of this world for me. We were playing with Ruby and a place where they were unloading millions of people to the death chambers. And we stayed in the front, not only by the railroad, but also on the entrance to Auschwitz, and also in Birkenau. This was, let me put it this way, me being in 3 concentration camps, and you stay and me being with Ruby on a place where Hitler spoke to millions of people in Berlin, this gave me, it's unbelievable. I have got no words to say how I felt.
Mm, mm. What about you, Ruby? What was that like for you?
When I went there and they gave us to light up a candle for the people who passed away, then we wanted to light up the candle, and the wind blew us up. We couldn't light up the candle. It was a sunny day, summer. And all of a sudden, I saw a cloud coming from the sky. It's like you saw the 10 Commandments story. And all of a sudden, with that cloud came on a rain, a big rain. And we didn't know what to do, but we went to a tree. Next one was a little tree. We covered ourselves. And soon that cloud went down. It was a rain, yeah. And after we come back, was sunny. I think that was God heard us and blessed us. When we came back, we went to Brooklyn, New York, for a show, and people probably saw this story, and they asked me, bless me, give my hand. The rabbi said to me, give me a blessing. I almost said, what kind of blessing you want? I want to get married. Like I would be a rabbi. I don't know, because he said that I was blessed from God.
So just so the audience
That's
understands.
in Auschwitz.
No, that was in Treblinka.
In Treblinka, yeah.
It was in Treblinka. So just for
Yeah.
the congregation to get a better context of the story that Ruby just described, that unfortunately was one of those scenes that was incredibly powerful. I filmed them going to Treblinka, walking up to this. I don't know how many of you have been to Treblinka.
Yeah.
But it's basically stones, and it's a bare field that has like a monolithic stone that people walk up to, and there's a huge crack in it, and people put candles in there and prayers.
Yeah.
And Saul and Ruby walked up
They
to.
couldn't light up the candle.
Pardon me?
They couldn't light up the candle.
Right. So they were trying to light the candle. It did eventually light, and they said the prayers, and then it poured. This rain, bizarre rain, just came and poured down, and they described it as the tears of the people who had died there. That's how they interpreted that, and that's how it felt. It was a very powerful moment.
Depressing.
Yeah, yeah, it was depressing, but heartfelt. And Saul was extremely emotional in Treblinka because Saul didn't know exactly at that time where his parents were taken. Saul, why don't you
Yes,
explain?
when I come to Treblinka, I was really very emotional. What happened? I knew my mother went with the first transport from Krakow to Treblinka. I knew there was on June the 12th. And when I came to Treblinka, before we went to the big monument, me and Ruby, I started to think, I bet you, I had a feeling that my mother was there. But I couldn't recall it. So I was very emotional. But after coming from Treblinka, coming back home, I spoke to several people, and I spoke to a friend of mine that went to school together. We were liberated together. We still communicate now together. He lives in New Jersey. We were together living, we were very close. My wife, she passed away already. He told me, Saul, that the first transport went to Treblinka, definitely. He knows everything about the concentration camps and everything. After he told me now, I felt very happy that I was there. Whatever happened, that I had the opportunity to see where my mother was buried, or burned, or you understand, in the crematorium. I went through the chimney.
So I just opened up the chat just to scan a few of the questions while you were talking, Saul.
Yes.
Yeah, I actually had on my list here of questions asking about how your children were affected by your own experience being a Holocaust survivor. So why don't you start, Saul? Tell me how your kids how they dealt with you being a survivor.
Well,
And then Hannah, let's hear from you, being a child of survivors, what it was like for you.
Yeah,
So Saul,
yes, I start. Okay,
start.
with me was very simple.
Yeah.
I'm father of 4 children. I got 7 grandchildren. I got 3 great children. I got 1 son living in Israel. And 2 years ago, a grandchild was born, and I went to the prison. I flew back. Now, this is the situation. My children did know nothing about the Holocaust between me and my wife at all. But when what his name Spielberg started the interview, people came into our house and interview me and interview my wife. Right after this, my wife opened up, we were talking to children about the Holocaust.
And how did they respond?
Well, the boys were very receptive. The girls, not so much. But eventually, I've got now an adopted granddaughter from Russia. And believe me, she's more interested in the Holocaust than my own grandchildren. As a matter of fact, she just walked in here now.
Let me ask you this. Did it ever bother you in any way? I don't think I've ever asked you this. You have Paul who married a Gentile. You
I
have
beg pardon?
Paul married a Gentile. Paul,
No, no, only 2 of them.
Paul was one.
Paul and Gina, and
And
3,
Gina.
Paul, Gina, and Bessie.
And
Yeah,
yeah, 3 of them. Did that
correct.
bo- did that affect you at all? How did that affect you as a
The fact, listen, I was a very liberal father, so I don't know. Affect me, didn't affect me. I mean, I was running my life, and I gave him a chance to run their life. Now I got a son who was very successful in the United States. He was a captain pilot for major airline. He was a private. He was a chief pilot for 20 pilots. He packed in, went to Israel, and he's coming back with a woman in August, and I'm gonna have a wedding. My son is getting married
Great. Mazel
with
tov.
an Israeli.
I have 2
Was Sabra.
grandchildren.
So he gonna compensate for everything.
So
I have
Hannah,
He just
2.
left. Tod, he just left this morning. He's in the air now, flying back home
okay, I'll
to
call him.
Israel.
I have
Hannah,
two great children, and 1 comes on the way. One is on the way, will be the 3rd one.
And Hannah, can you tell us what it was like for you? What it's been like to be the child of a survivor and sing with your father, etc.
Well, can you hear me? I'm not sure if you can hear me. Could everybody hear?
I can hear.
Growing up, my father didn't really speak much about the Holocaust. Neither did his brothers and sisters. I knew that they were Holocaust survivors. The only stories I ever heard was from my grandmother, who gave me some incredible stories. And she was actually a heroine. She saved so many children. And I remember she told me a great story about they were loading up children on a bus to take them to, destroy them. And she came up from behind and opened up the emergency door and screamed at the children to run. And they all ran. And of course, the Nazis were shooting and the dogs were being chasing them and mauling them. So the stories I did receive was from grandma, but my father and the whole family never reflected. I never heard stories, and they didn't think about that dark, dim time in life. And they were always just projecting on the positive and on life and light. And there was always just joy and happiness in the house, and always music, and always people in and out, and guests, and always frailer, happy moments, great food, and always music. And so I was never really affected that way. And my father never ever taught me to hate anybody, only to judge people based on how they treat me, never to be prejudiced and things of that nature. So I was very, very lucky to be brought up in a well-balanced home. I was so fortunate of that. And my father being a musician, I always had the love of that beautiful Jewish, gorgeous music. So it was always, in my blood and always there. But I guess it wasn't time yet for me to become a part of it. And God opened up the door to create a wonderful band. And my father always wanted me to perform with him, but the timing wasn't right. And I'm so grateful to have the opportunity to share a historical moment with my father and be a part of something that has such a beautiful legacy. And I'm so grateful for the opportunity. And I love, Judaism. I'm very strong and passionate about it. I seem to be wanting to get more involved in Jewish organizations, and also to be, a voice for Judaism and also for survivors, because, they're all part of an extraordinary generation that's really on their way out. And we need someone to keep, the message of these amazing people who have survived and the amazing people who have cherished. So I'm just so grateful, and also to be a part of an amazing documentary. And I'm just very, very blessed. And I'm happy, a very happy person. I feel very well-rounded now, being a part of this Holocaust Survivor Band and being a part of something that really transcends and will leave an amazing message. And to be here with extraordinary people like yourselves, to take out your time to meet with us and to talk with us. I mean, this is just a wonderful miracle in my sense. And I just want to leave with one more thing, talking about Poland and Germany and things of that nature. I never, ever would have went to those countries. The only reason why I would have gone was with my father. And we were back and forth about this, because Dad really didn't want to go. I really didn't want to go. And I remember my father telling me in Yiddish, Hitler didn't want me, let alone want you. And when he said that, I said, you know what? We need to both go there and put our Jewish feet on that land and let's go have a good time, let's sing. And we sang in the streets, people were looking at us, right, Todd? We just would set up in these little parks and start singing Jewish songs in a place where Jews were being killed. And to me, that was the greatest, I don't want to say revenge, but redemption. It was just amazing. I'll never forget those moments. And I'll never forget the opportunity to be with my father. It's just something I'll always cherish, the most beautiful memories. Thank you. I love you, Dad.
That's great. That's great. Holly,
No,
Ruby, were you going to say something?
I want to say something here because the way, how many people understand Yiddish? I'm going to tell you, sing you a song. What reminds me, I coming from 9, 10 children, and all of them gone. I'm only the one who I still alive. And this is a song of that particular, I heard that song a long time ago, and that was sung in the camps. And I want to sing that song, and I hope you understand that.
Okay.
Wie schnell sind abweg die Jugend, und bin ich jung und bin ich alt. Nur eine Sache liegt mir in Sekunden, wenn ich am Mann sich wird mir kalt. A Kind a Jossemu verblieben, und a Tate Mame, und a Heim, und a Schwester, und a Brüder. Ich bin allein, ich bin allein. Oi, Tate Mame, Tate Mame. Es fehlt mir euch die ganze Zeit. Oi, Tate Mame, Tate Mame. Man darf das solche sein von Gott. Der Mensch was macht das mit dem Leben. Kein Schatz und alles das verdammt. Eine Schwankheit von Tate Mame. Es fehlt mir euch die ganze Zeit. I hope people will hear that song. And this is a Jewish song and a very sad song.
Thank you, Ruby. Thank you. Holly, should we open this up to some questions from the congregation?
Yeah, I'd like to ask one from our rabbi who's actually on the call. Rabbi Dalton, would you like to actually ask it out loud?
Sure, I'd be happy to. Hi, Saul, Ruby, and Todd. It's good to be here with you. We showed this movie to a group of WJC teens. So some of the teenagers at the synagogue watched the film on Tuesday evening. And the question that they wanted to ask Saul and Ruby was the following. You overcame many difficult and traumatic moments in your lives. Do those memories ever go away? Or if not, how have you learned to live with them without being overwhelmed with sadness or anger?
The story, what you're telling me, I tell you, some music makes the world go round. If I wouldn't play music, I maybe would be more depressed. But the music makes me, it's a therapy, makes me to forget what's what.
What about you, Saul?
Well, I am a double Holocaust survivor. Number one, I survived 3 concentration camps. Number 2, I survived a stomach cancer. I'm living with it already for 30 years. But I forget what I eat for breakfast. But I remember what happened to me from 1939 till now. Simple as that. I'm still alive. I'm 96 years old. I was 96 years old Thursday. And I hope I'm gonna live a few years more so I can beat anti-Semitism all over the world. I play my music. I love what I do. I just got myself, I got a DJ set. I got 2 sets of drums in my house. They made me a surprise party Friday night. The children, I know nothing about it. They took me when I walked in, I saw 20 people with a catered up with 5 musicians, friends of mine. Musicians came and serenaded me happy birthday. And this is my memory.
And I am 92.
Oh, that's great.
That's the story. And in concentration camp, I tell you the truth, hold this. In concentration camp, that's how I started to play my drums. This is a replica of 2 spoons that I used to play and sing. Ya da 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 ra la 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 ra la 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 da 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 da. And then after the war, I played in Italy. I learned how to play drums for 5 years. I was living in Italy. Then I came to America. I didn't touch the drums until the day that I went to Sam Asian about a set of drums. That's the situation.
Well,
Thank you, Saul.
would you say that the music is a key part of your healing? Playing the music.
The music was a part of my life. Simple.
Sherry, who's on the call, wants to ask you, Saul, if you ever met or played music with the 108-year-old London pianist.
No, I never met the woman. No, I never did. I just listened to her, and I read her essay, and I watched her on television when she was still alive. She was playing the piano, but after she passed away, I took much interest, because now I read the book about her, so I know exactly her story with her husband, with her child. He's got also a very big cello player. Her son is still playing cello in Israel.
Okay.
I'd like to let the congregation know her name is Alice Hertz Summers, and there is actually a beautiful short film on her. It won an Oscar for Best Short Film. We're talking back in, I don't know, must have been maybe 5 years ago, I'm guessing. I think it's on Netflix, either Netflix or Amazon. But if you Google Alice Hertz, I believe it's HERZ-Summers, SOMMERS, you should find it. And if you don't, let Holly know, and I'll send it to Holly, and she'll get it to you.
Absolutely.
It's a great film. Great film.
Please, if you want to, if you would drop it in the chat box, Todd, that'd be amazing. And then I'll send it to everybody. Or you can email it to me.
I'll email it to you.
Yeah. So everyone, I want to make sure you all watch the film. You have until the end of the month. It's free. We emailed you the directions. Let me know. Just email me if you have any problems. Some of the questions in the chat box, you'll actually find out the answers to in the film. So on that note, if anyone would like to ask a question out loud before we end with a little bit of music, I'd like to give you the opportunity to ask a question before we finish. Would anyone like to do that?
Holly?
Yes?
I actually had a question for Todd. Todd, how did you end up meeting Saul and Ruby and decide to document their journey?
So I maybe you weren't there in the beginning.
Yeah, sorry, I came a little late.
Yeah, no problem. I met them through, I saw a piece on them in the New York Times and fell in love with them and called up Saul, and we immediately had a meeting. I flew from Chicago to Fort Lauderdale to meet with him, and we agreed to work together, and the rest was history. That's real short version of it.
A wonderful history. A beautiful history.
Beautiful.
Todd, what was it like being there for both unfortunate passings of their wives? What was that like? And you must have become a real part of the family.
It was very hard, very, very difficult. But I knew from the get-go they were ill from the time I started filming, and I knew that this would be a possibility. And so as things did get worse for them, and it was becoming more and more a strong possibility that they were going to pass. I met with Saul and Ruby. This is one of the things I do when I'm doing, these are called longitudinal documentaries. It's where you follow people over years. And I've done many films where I follow people over many years and I get very close to them, and it's all built on trust.
Mhm.
And I knew this could be a really potentially complex, difficult situation with the wives dying, because I would want to include that in the film. So I met with them ahead of time and said, guys, this is a possibility. I mean, Saul and Ruby are straight shooters and they've seen everything you can imagine in life. So I knew they could handle this discussion. And I said, well, how do you want to handle this? Should this happen while we're filming? What are your thoughts on this? And they shared their thoughts and they said, we need to talk to our families. They spoke to their family, they spoke to their kids, everyone in the circle. And we came to an agreement before the tragedy happened, before they died. And they died within a week of each other, which was insane. So we already had our rules set up, and that's how I dealt with him. But it was hard. It was very hard. Hard to see.
Sure.
Yeah.
I'd love to know what the three of you, actually the four of you, Chana, if you could answer this question too. What you're doing now, what you're working on. I know the film before the pandemic was going to film festivals galore, and some of your trips got canceled, and I'm so sorry to hear that. And I'm so glad that you're getting the chance to take it out into the world right now. I'm so thrilled. What are you all doing now? What are you working on next? Saul, do you want to start?
Beg your pardon?
Saul, what are you working on now? What are you doing?
What I do now?
What are you working on? Yeah.
I do two things. Number one, I play my drums every day for exercise. Number two, I put together last year an orchestra of young children, high school children, and we're calling them door-to-door orchestra, which means generation to generation. And with those children, I'm sticking around. As a matter of fact, they surprised me. They came to my birthday party also. I didn't know nothing about it. And they serenade me too. I had five musicians in the house. I had a very important man that he's a professor of music in University of Florida, and he came to volunteer, brought his instrument. I don't want to say what kind. And I love music. Then I participate in a program that we try to beat anti-Semitism in the United States and all over the world. And this gives me a lot of, as a matter of fact, I'm booked already in 3 countries, Italy, Poland, in Israel. They're all prepared, but I can go. It's all ready for me. As a matter of fact, in Israel, I'm going to lead an orchestra of 150 children. I'm going to be the conductor, not the musician. I'll be the conductor. I did it already twice. And I'm also booked in Poland in a hotel to stay a week and play with the orchestra where I'm going to hire in Poland. I just may bring with me 1 or 2 people to travel with me. The rest I'm going to put together in Poland. I got somebody that works on it. That's it.
That's it. That's a lot. Amazing,
Yeah.
amazing.
You want to hear my story?
We do, please.
And now I'm not doing nothing because all the time everything is closed, But I want to tell you the story about before I came to the United States. I've been in Canada, and I played with my orchestra in a nightclub. All of a sudden came in a guy with another guy and sat down on the piano and played with us. And I even didn't know who he is. After I find out he was Liberace, this piano player. And every night he played with us in Montreal, in Canada. He came there, I think he's coming from Canada, maybe he lived in Canada. I didn't know his name. And also, I performed in Ed Sullivan in the Jew, and also, performed at Sullivan, and in the Jewish Theater, 2nd Avenue. And I've been around with music, but now I am stuck like a homebound. And I hope everything gonna open, I'm gonna start again.
It is.
Because I play also piano, keyboard, and accordion.
Amazing. Chana.
Well, there's a lot of things that we want to do. We just got our second vaccines. So we're waiting for the month to get the full, effect of it. But we were approached by someone who wants to do a play. I've been speaking with this person for quite some time, but we're all ready and waiting just for everything to kind of calm down with this virus. So we've got that on the works. Dad and I, we're preparing to go into the recording studio. We want to do a really nice CD, father and daughter. And I think somebody else wrote something in regards if we have any recorded music. Maybe Tod can shoot out my email and we can send, if someone gives me the address, we'll let them know cost and postage. We can send out CDs, recorded CDs from the band, primarily my father on the CD. And, we're thinking about doing a book. There's so many things we're excited. Actually, being home for all this time has opened up our mind to reinventing ourselves. So we're just waiting to just feel a little bit more comfortable in a couple of weeks so that we can move forward. Dad's been home all this time. He hasn't really left. He's been afraid. I can't blame him either. His sister passed away from COVID a number of months ago. So of course it really scared him. So there's going to be a lot of beautiful things on the horizon for us. We're just hoping to have more time and to have health. And I know we'll definitely have an audience that will open up their hearts to us again. So we're excited about that.
And Tod, what do you want?
Before it gets light, it's dark night.
Tod, what's next?
Can you hear me? Holly, could you hear me or no?
We heard you, absolutely.
Yeah.
Okay, wonderful.
Tod, we just want to end with you, what you're doing.
Sure, and then we should go to Saul playing.
Yeah.
And also, I did look up the name of the film, Lady in Number 6. Lady in Number 6 on Amazon. I took a sabbatical from making documentaries because of COVID and I did not want to go out and shoot in this environment. So I actually turned to writing and I'm working on a novel right now.
Nice.
So, yeah, it actually is inspired by the lives of these two men. I was so moved
Wow.
by the experience of going to Poland with them, and my family is also from Poland. So I just started writing, and I'm writing a story that takes place from 1939 to 1941, following a young man through that period. So
Tell them how you asking questions. Tell them who you ask questions about.
I asked questions. Yeah, Saul, because it takes place in Krakow. Saul is, the perfect person to go to for all kinds of details on what it was like in Krakow in 1939. I got the perfect source here.
Wow.
All right, Saul, so beat some drums for us, will you?
Yeah. Okay. Start. Yes. One second.
Is it done? Didn't let him play the drum. What he playing?
Uh-oh. Okay, we're not hearing anything. No, can't hear you.
Oh, you don't hear?
Now we hear you. Now we hear it.
Thank you.
Thank you, Holly.
Thank you, Todd. It's a wrap, everybody. Thank you so much for spending your Sunday night with us. Thank you on behalf of the Westchester Jewish Center and the World Jewry Committee and the Holocaust Learning Center. We're so honored to have had Todd, Saul, and Ruby here tonight. We really appreciate
Thank you.
spending your night with us.
So
It's
much.
our pleasure.
And thank you to Ruth for helping organize it, and to Amy and Mark and Dan and everyone. Thank you so much, everybody. Have a great night.
Everybody.
Bye-bye, everybody. Bye-bye, Ruby,
Thank you.
Kat,
Happy birthday,
everybody,
Ruby.
Hannah, everybody. Goodbye.
Everybody.
Bye.
Okay, now I see you. Did you hear my drums?
We did. We heard your drums.
Yeah, good.
Absolutely. You're wonderful.